Hey everybody, Joe Lowry, what a day. Happy Wednesday out there. It is hump day in a sense, but if you're like so many of us being at home, it's just another day. Eat, sleep, repeat. You know, what a day usually encompasses what's going on in today's world, and with sports, weather, Hollywood, wrestling pretty much at a standstill. I thought it would give you first-hand knowledge of what's actually going on inside Boston area hospitals now. I have friends who are in the medical field, doctors and nurses, who right now are in Boston treating patients with COVID-19, and I talk to them and they give me a first-hand account on what's going on. Now, first of all, I have a friend who's a nurse who currently works in the cardiac unit. They have about 28 beds on their floor. That's normally for people with cardiac issues. Well, that whole floor is now a COVID-19 floor with both patients either being tested positive or close to being ruled out for COVID-19. They separate it all. Normally that staff is about 8 or 9 for the floor. Right now, they're doubled. 16 to 18 staff members, putting at a 1 to 2 nurse-patient ratio. Now, here's an example of trying to tend to a patient who is COVID-19, either positive or being ruled out or in there for the symptoms. Now, to enter a patient's room, a nurse must wash their hands, put on 3 pairs of gloves, a full gown, head to toe, by the way, an N95 mask, and of course, that big face shield you see on TV. Now, just to enter the room, once inside the room, the patient's needs are addressed. Everything goes on, but upon exiting, they have to take off all that PPE equipment, dispose of it, wash their hands, sterilize, and then put their information into the database. Once that is completed, it's on to the next room where the process is repeated over and over again. Now, what some nurses are doing to assess the patients beforehand is calling into the room, either on a cell phone or on their intercom, asking them a series of questions. Do you need anything? Are you in pain? Kind of doing the triage part before you walk in there, before they have to enter the room, so they're not disrobing and robing all over again. So that's kind of neat there. Now, what about the emergency rooms? Well, they are at capacity. But the reasons why a person is there is pretty common now. What used to read a plethora of symptoms like abdominal pain, hurt neck, etc., now the board reads favor, aches and pains, headaches, and trouble breathing. Obviously coronavirus. As the number rises, so will the ER visits. Let's not forget that real life is still taking place, folks. People are still getting sick with other issues. Appendix bursting, car accidents, broken legs, etc. So you can imagine the strain this puts on all healthcare workers. Even those people coming into the ER, they may have been exposed. They could be bringing it in. So you just never know. Now here's an interesting story. When this first pandemic started hitting Massachusetts hospitals about 3 weeks ago, and very little was known about the disease, people who were assumed positive, even if there was no testing at the time, they were being sent home. They were wheeled out to the curb. They were wheeled out with a sheet over their head. Can you believe that? After all, this was the beginning of the pandemic, so nobody really knew anything. So what else is happening at the area hospitals while we stay at home? Well, nursing assistants, med students, anybody who's in the medical field or getting into the medical field are now stationed outside each patient's rooms. Remember when I told you about a nurse or doctor entering a patient's room, they have to get dressed up and all that? Well, they have to sign in and out now and put down the reason why they went in there in the first place. This is used as a tracking mechanism in case the person does test positive. They can identify the exposure that was attributed to that. So if you went in there and they tested positive and you were exposed to it, you'd get immediately tested. So this is going on a constant basis. So while we're watching our movies and so forth, this is constantly going on in the background. Housekeeping, they are now stationed outside the elevators for when a patient is admitted. They are first they're admitted, then transported to their rooms. Right after that patients and people leave the elevator, the whole entire elevator is then being cleaned, disinfected, and sterilized. This is done each time the elevator is being used. Again, the more the numbers rise, the more people get admitted, the more times this is done. So you can imagine what's going on again. Of course, the housekeeper doing the cleaning is donning the same PPE gear that the medical staff is wearing. There is constant cleaning and disinfecting going on in and around the hospital at all times. Security staff, well, they have been on heightened awareness, of course. Now they escort patients to and from their destinations throughout the hospital. So you can imagine what they're going through. And actually during this time, visitors, family members are not allowed at the hospital. This is the heart-wrenching part. I've been told it creates a lot less foot traffic, but the obvious downside here is that while your loved one is at the hospital, you can't even enter the hospital anymore. And the saddening part is you've seen the videos coming out of Italy, Europe, and it's obviously over here now, as you see a loved one on a respirator breathing their last breaths before they pass away, alone in a room without a family member or friend by their sides is truly, truly gut-wrenching. I just can't imagine. So if you listen to any part of this story, please, please, please let it be that last part. As we stay home to slow the spread of this virus, remember, there are those out there who have a greater chance of being stricken with this disease who go to the hospital, never to go home again. These are unprecedented times, which calls for unprecedented measures. And as we all know, testing increases, so will the numbers. You'll see it today. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. So please, please, please. With that being said, I do hope everyone does take care of themselves during these times. Stay home. Plenty of social media options available out there. Keep washing those hands. And as I like to say, be wise. Sanitize. All right, folks. I'll be back later on with some WWE WrestleMania news. So in the meantime, take care. Be safe. I'm Joe Lowry. What a day.